Members, we've got a quorum already, so let's invite the administration and the deputations in. I've called the meeting to order, and I will invite the Deputy Chairman, Ms. Chen Yun-han, to chair the first half of the meeting. I would like to welcome the deputations, representatives from the administration, and also representatives from the Elderly Commission. I wish to welcome Ms. Annie Tam, the Permanent Secretary, Dr. Lam Ching-choi, Vice Chairman of the Elderly Commission and Chairman of the Working Group on Long-Term Care Model under the Elderly Commission. And then I would like to welcome Dr. C.K. Lau and Dr. Ernest Choi, Principal Investigator from the consultant team. And I would also like to welcome Mr. Donald Chen, Deputy Secretary, Mr. Steve Chen, PAS, Ms. Cecilia Lee, Assistant Director of Social Welfare, and Ms. Maria Lau, Assistant Director of Social Welfare. So, Ms. Chen, please. Good morning. I would like to welcome everybody. Please find your seats. The administration will give us a PowerPoint presentation. I believe the administration will propose some revisions in the light of comments received from members. And then concerning the deputations, you can tune into Channel 0 Floor, Channel 1 Cantonese, Channel 2 English, Channel 3 Putonghua. So please tune in to the right channel. Please wear the earpiece, and you can seek assistance from our staff if you don't know how to operate the system. We have a total of 29 deputations. We'll invite you to speak one by one. And please bear in mind that your verbal and written submissions will not be covered by the Electoral Powers and Privileges Ordinance. I believe the deputations are aware of our guidance for members of the public attending electoral meetings and observing meetings in a public gallery. If you need a copy of this guidance, you can get a copy from our security staff. And also concerning your written submissions or your scripts, please give us a copy after you have spoken. So, Permanent Secretary, I believe you have 5 minutes to give us a presentation. Yes, Chairman, members, good morning. I would like to give members a PowerPoint presentation on the feasibility study for the Residential Care Service Voucher. In fact, I did show members this slide on Monday. You can see the aging population problem in Hong Kong. You can see that for those 65 or above, in 2014 the figure was about 1 million, and the figure will reach a much higher level in the years to come. And you can see that for the age bracket 75 to 79 years old, at the moment 210,000, and then 548,000 by 2041, and then 80 to 84 from 168,000 to 466,000, and then 85 or above 161,000 to 490,000. So we have to be concerned about the challenges brought about by an aging population. Our policy is to emphasize community care and residential care services will be the backup. There are elderly citizens who are frail, but then they only need day care services and not residential care services. As members are aware, the number of elderly citizens will increase continuously, and so we need to carry out a proper planning and provide necessary support services. And here you can see that we plan to increase the number of service units and places. I understand that many elderly citizens want to age in place. This is a traditional Chinese concept. But then, of course, we have subsidized places whereas non-subsidized places. You can see that there are some vacancies with regard to non-subsidized places. There are about 11,000. And in fact, in the paper issued to members on Monday, we provided the figures, and so I will not go over the figures in detail. There is a rather long queue for subsidized places, and we have this central queue, so to speak. We have adopted a two-pronged approach to increase the number of residential places for the elderly. For example, some NGOs have proposed some of their own sites for the development of RCHEs. So we'll be able to provide about 10,000, and then under the pilot scheme on residential care service vouchers for the elderly, there will be an additional 3,000. We have this objective of trying as far as possible to allow our elderly persons to age in place, but then we'll also provide residential care services as backup. As at the end of December 2014, there were about 25,000 elderly persons queuing up for subsidized RCHEs, and out of this number, about 6,000 are now occupying non-subsidized places in private homes, and on the average, they receive a CSSA amount of $7,260, and we have about 11,000 vacancies in non-subvented or non-subsidized homes. And out of the non-subsidized places in private homes, there are about 10,000 vacancies. And here, we are trying to explain to members why we want to carry out this pilot scheme. The feasibility study was carried out by the Elderly Commission, and the Commission was assisted by a consultancy team from the Hong Kong We have carried out some consultation, and the next step is for the consultancy team to provide a report to the working group. And in fact, today we have the consultancy team with us. And a final report should be available in the middle of the year for submission to the administration. Right, members, perhaps we can look at the revisions that the administration has proposed. Right, so the deputations, each deputation will have 3 minutes. The first deputation, Ms. Crystal Chang from the Hong Kong Council of Social Service. Thank you, Chairman. We represent the social welfare sector, we do not support service planning without a basis. Concerning these vouchers, we have an aging population, and so it is important that we carry out long-term planning. And we should be demand and data-led. We need to resolve these problems effectively. And out of the 10 elderly persons on the waiting list, only one is willing to consider residential care service voucher and means testing. So you can see that this program is not popular. And then we have two queries. It's true that as at the end of October last year, there were about 24,000 elderly persons queuing up for subsidized homes. And the consultancy team assumes that 10.5% of the elderly persons on the queue will accept the voucher, so about 10%. But then those who took part in the survey were elderly persons, but then in fact we also have to take into account the wishes of the family members, and we believe that ultimately only less than 10% of the elderly persons on the queue will want to accept the scheme. And then as to whether they wish to accept the scheme or not, one factor that will affect their decisions will be the availability of places. The elderly persons may not know that in 2014-15 to 2016-2017, there will be over 1,000 new places available. And elderly persons may not know that there will be new contract homes on over a dozen sites. And then elderly persons may not know that the Labor and Welfare Bureau is following up on 63 projects for in situ redevelopment and expansion. And concerning elderly services, there will be about 9,000 places. Out of that, 7,000 will be residential places.
And we'll look at the we need to look at the reasons why for the long queue at the waiting list, because the Welfare Bureau and the Elderly Commission have not yet provided an analysis similar to that kind of report done by the auditor or the audit department. So I think the Elderly Commission seems to have come to its conclusion already. If the Labor and Welfare Bureau is inclined towards the voucher scheme, I think I need to point out that this should not be actually made obvious or be part of the planning now. Okay, next one is Ms. Chow Mi Team from the Working Group on Long-Term Care Service. I'm here not to object money following the user, but I want to object to a misinterpretation of the model. Money using the user should be treated as a kind of subvention model. That is, the places are actually financed by voucher given to users so that the user can have more variety of services. In overseas countries, vouchers make no distinction between community care or care at the residential home. The beauty of money following the user is that the person using it, the old person, can use it at an appropriate time to him or her choose where to be careful. So the money following the user needs to indeed meet the need of the elderly persons. So this approach must be based on the fair assessment of the need for services. And Hong Kong has already a very integrated assessment system in Hong Kong. But over the past decade, people in the sector know that, or have felt that, the current system only roughly match, elderly people with the kind of needs they need. People in the sector, we can see from our work that for long-term residential care and people needing long-term care because of the declining health and limited physical ability and so forth, the need to be more resources put in for long-term care for elderly people. Therefore, we have a demand here. We hope that there can be a fair and objective method to help us know, how we can actually, or what types of resources and how much resources should be put into the service provided for elderly people needing long-term care. And this is really something very fundamental to our system for looking after such elderly people. But unfortunately, if we adopt the money use following the user approach, then we need to ensure that the voucher can adequately meet the needs of elderly people. Otherwise, there's no way the elderly persons cannot buy the voucher that really meet the needs. So whether you have the means test or not, or whether you're having another paying system, the person paying would need to ask, how do you come to the amount of the voucher? Does the voucher cover the residential service only, or does it cover home physical care support for elderly people as well? I do hope that the government can really try to optimize the system for long-term care service, and instead of that, you should not rush into implementing a voucher system that could create confusion. Thank you. Next one is Unit in Charge, Services for the Elderly at Caritas Hong Kong, Ms. Cheung Wai-ling. Since the Elderly Commission provided information, the sector actually ends up having all sorts of questions. We very much hope to maintain the long-term professional development of residential care service. 13 years ago, there were 2 documents that show that implementing voucher would be doomed to failure. In 2002, there was an audit report on the residential care homes for elderly people, and then there's another report issued by the former head of Welfare Department. And now, 13 years later, I think it's unwise for us to come up with this idea of voucher again. Back in the 2002 report, indeed, the quality of this care service homes actually vary from center to center, and many of the elderly people poll prefer to live in subvented homes because subvented homes provide a much higher quality than private homes. So for each resident, you have to look at what kind of service they get in terms of the number of staff at a home and so forth, the facilities provided there and so forth. But the places offered under this subvented scheme or the voucher scheme may not ensure the same quality. Who doesn't know that the reason why old people don't want to live in homes with bought places? The previous head of Social Welfare Department in 2001 actually noted that there were 2,690 people living in subvented homes. Of them, 19,500, that is 74% of the elderly residents, were on CSSA. The amount of the Social Security payment given to these residents in the old people homes amounted to $1.37 billion. So are we saying that only the poorest people on CSSA can actually will be confined to low-quality services at private residential homes? And logically speaking, if you have CSSA system and also people living in those private homes, and indeed, we're saying that the poor people need to opt for the worst kind of service. So, of course, only 9% of the elderly people chose to live in private homes with workplaces where improvements have been made. But still, ultimately, further surveys show that old people still do not prefer to live in private homes. So what are the reasons? I'm sure it's very obvious to all. Thank you. Next one is we have Mr. Benson, Senior Service Coordinator at the Hong Kong SKH Lady Macleod Center. I'd like to point out that we should not keep actually issuing checks for residential care service for the elderly. We need to have the residential care service developed in a normal environment. Now, while we are actually reassessing the development of a residential care service, at this stage, if we actually come up with another scheme like the pilot scheme on voucher, then this could cause confusion to the entire development of the sector. Some old people have asked us, the government kept saying that they should actually live in residential homes, but is that feasible? If old people are so weak, can they really get the help they need? If old people can really, spend their last years of life at peace at home, and before moving into the residential homes for them, then of course, what about the waiting list? But for us working in the sector, you can see that 5 years ago, Leung Yiu-chung once asked Matthew Zhang, the secretary, those in residential care homes, what about the conditions the conditions of living environment there? And the secretary said that in 2000, based on figures from the fourth quarter of 2008, each old person in each quarter can get about 40 hours of direct service in terms of having their bodies washed by the people, and also having medical support and so forth, and recreational facilities, excluding meal delivery to homes. So if you do some calculations, they get 40 to 44 hours per quarter. That is, each week they'll get 3.5 hours of support each week. So for some really sick old people, to get only 3.5 hours per week of support or service in terms of helping them wash their bodies or other support, then that's definitely inadequate. So with the lack of resources, it's not really fair to actually people getting the service. And also you can see from another report that the Solventum Community Services, each case cost about $4,590 per month. So look at the operating cost and compare it to the cost for workplace system. Each month it costs about $9,938, and for the Solventum centers it costs more than $10,000. So you can see that the residential care service and the support available to residential care service is wholly inadequate. People think that residential care service should be given more money, but in terms, sometimes the costs are even more, actually, for people living at home and who are going to centers for help instead of getting help delivered to their homes. Indeed, you need to, try to narrow the gap in terms of the cost between various types of services, so that people living at home and getting service delivered at home can get more support. Thank you. Next one is Ms. Teng Wei-si, Center in charge of Chinese Young Men's Christian Association of Hong Kong Chai Wan Neighborhood Elderly Center. I hope that our government can rethink what should be the right approach. We don't want to see any blow to the long-term development of residential care service. We object to the voucher scheme because its objectives are unclear. In 2013, it's not easy, but the welfare sector start to implement the pilot scheme. But for the long term, development of residential care service, the voucher scheme did actually led the various departments and centers to experience with co-payment, formulate case mix, and resource utilization groups, IT system and performance indicators, and also it had come up with an integrated assessment tools. We are in the process of all developing all the above. So we are really experimenting with the money following the user approach and coming up with performance indicators. We do not want to take lightly any chance of risk management or enhancing the care. We need to experiment with another assessment system now to bring in some kind of regulations for the provision of service so that the users of service can get better quality service. The Elderly Commission wants to come up with the money using the following the user approach, but yet we're not clear about what direction it's heading into. Indeed. Thank you. Next one is the SKH Holy Carpenter Church District Elderly Community Center social worker, Mr. Chow Chiu Wah. Yeah, the people in the sector are reasonable people, and we are here at this public hearing. We do want to give respect to others present, but I really want to say to the Elderly Commission, the administration, and other consultants, your implementation of the pilot scheme is something that we object to. We, the sector, thinks that the experience from the first stage of community social service voucher actually was very useful and had much reference value. I'm not going into detail about the community service voucher scheme, but I believe that the first stage, the experience from the first stage can help us implement with the optimization of the second stage and design of the second stage. How can we optimize the scheme and improve the service projects or items available under the voucher scheme, and how can we ensure or allow for elderly people to live peacefully, and how can we improve the or protect the right to know for the service users?
And also, what about the roles of social workers and our coordination with service providers? We think that the administration should finish or complete the assessment of phase 1 and also carry out detailed design for phase 2 before really trying out the residential care service voucher scheme. And in the trial, can temporary residential care be considered, or the temporary transition from hospital to residential care homes? So we think that the government should assess the impact of the community health care community care voucher scheme first, and this present pilot scheme should not be launched hastily. Next, we have Mr. Ng Ting Shan, Chairperson, Care for the Elderly Association Limited. Yes, Chairperson. In fact, the government wants to try to cut down on resources for the elderly. We think that before doing anything, the government should improve upon the board place scheme. According to the Director of Audit, in 2013-2014, about $660 million was used to buy places, and out of the 110, for some of them, the occupancy rate is only about 50 to 80%, and for some of them, less than 50%, and there were a few hundred vacancies. As a result, the government had to pay about $50 million per annum for those places. Then many elderly persons are unwilling to live in enhanced workplace scheme homes. In March 2009, it was 7%, and then last year in March was only about 5%. And in fact, for private homes not covered by the workplace scheme, there are about 10,000 vacancies. And so, even if under this voucher scheme, places are bought from private homes, family members will not want their elderly family members to move into these homes. I think under the workplace scheme, the number of places bought should not be capped at 50%. The SWD should be allowed to exercise flexibility and discretion to purchase or buy more places at certain RCHEs. In 2010-2011, the government bought some places from nursing homes. 380 nursing homes were bought from about 40 self-financing homes. But then you can see that, in fact, only a very few self-financing homes took part in the scheme. Only a total of 160 places were involved, and that was because the government did not really pay an adequate sum for the places. And in fact, we can see that for certain homes, the occupancy rate is only 70%, so there is no need to have this pilot scheme. In 2013-2014, under the enhanced workplace scheme, the sum is 7,900 per place, and then 13,200 for subsidized places, and then 12,700 for contract homes. And then for workplace nursing homes, 15,600. The government owes us an explanation as to why it is not proposing to increase the subsidy under the workplace scheme from 7,000 odd to about 13,000. Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Yvonne Low, St. James Settlement Central and Western District Elderly Community Center. Yes, thank you. We are not trying to make vicious criticisms against the scheme, but then the government must face the reality. The minimum staffing ratio can no longer meet present-day demands. Government needs to take into account the level of subsidy, quality of service, and so on and so forth. The government and the consultancy team are not facing the reality. They are calculating the amount of subsidies and the value of the vouchers on the basis of unrealistic staffing ratio. In fact, consideration should be given to the health conditions of the elderly inmates, and of course their conditions do deteriorate. In fact, we have looked at the proper staffing ratio, say for a home with 100 beds. In contract homes, the number is 42.3, but then for workplace homes, there are only 32 staff members, so that was a difference of 10 staff members. In January 2013, the HKCSS carried out a survey on the shortage of staff in RCHEs, and in fact a submission was made to the WS panel, I would like to particularly refer to 2 points in the survey. First of all, government has the responsibility to review staffing arrangements and service standards from time to time, especially with regard to the establishment of frontline staff. In other words, we have to make sure that there will be adequate elderly persons with deteriorating health conditions can be properly taken care of. The government can't just rely on the existing standards in the present legislation. I think members should review the present legislation. Please review the formula and the method for calculating the staffing establishment. Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Angel Chan from the Christian Family Service Center. Thank you. We are social workers serving elderly persons. We think this pilot scheme and the proposed vouchers violate the core values that we hold. In fact, most elderly persons want to age in place. This is also the government's policy objective. But then, under the voucher scheme, the recipients have to give up their CSSA entitlements. And as a result, those receiving CSSA and those who get the vouchers receive different treatment. Now, for example, for CSSA recipients, they can, if they have hearing impairment, they can apply for a reimbursement concerning their hearing aid, and also there are also burial aids or supplements should they pass away. But then, if elderly persons opt for vouchers, they will lose some of their existing CSSA benefits. We are talking about elderly persons who need residential care service, and the value of the voucher should depend on the level of care that the elderly person concerned needs. In other words, we have to look at the true unit cost, and the amount of the value of the voucher should not be pegged to the CSSA amount. As social workers, we are willing to support the government's policies, but social workers have the responsibility to let our clients know their rights and that they are entitled to services that they need. Now, if elderly persons lose their CSSA entitlements without knowing the full implications, as social workers, we need to explain to them the implications. We need to explain to them their rights and whether they are treated unreasonably. And because of the concerns, the pilot scheme or the voucher scheme will not be popular. So we hope that this idea be shelved. Next, we have Ms. Lisa Leung, Mong Kok Kai Fong Association Limited, Chen Hing Social Service Center. In 2011, the Elderly Commission commissioned a consultancy study and concerning elderly district centers. These are community services, and they are platforms for referral of elderly persons to services they need. Now, for elderly centers, district centers, and neighborhood centers, they serve 250,000 elderly persons a year, including healthier elderly persons and those who are frail. And we offer preventive care, developmental services, and also counseling services, and also canteen services, district services. We also provide referral service, outreaching service, and so on and so forth. But for these district elderly centers and neighborhood elderly centers, we have been given various tasks in recent years by the government, and so our colleagues are busy coping with their administrative work, and they have little time really dealing with core services. For example, the Guangdong scheme, the CCF, and so on and so forth. And if we are to have to take on another trial scheme, then that will mean that we'll be working under even greater pressure. And we now feel a bit confused as to what exactly our roles are as district centers and neighborhood centers for the elderly. In fact, we did give some views to the SWD. The SWD issued invitation letters to eligible elderly persons. And we have to talk to the various workers concerning our future arrangements, counseling, and so on and so forth. And I want to say that the government as well as the SWD can clarify the roles and positioning of the district centers and also neighborhood centers for the elderly. Next, we have Ms. Yip Wai-man, Baptist Oi Kwan Social Service. Yes, Chairman, thank you. We oppose the implementation of the voucher scheme at this stage. We don't have experience concerning case management yet, and also we'll have to spend a lot of time, resources on the case management system. It is said that in the initial 6 months, there can be case management services, including identification of suitable residential care homes. And OUDUP will be responsible for this. Yes, in fact, we can provide some case management fees. And in fact, this is a new design which has to be assessed by professional social workers. They have to assess elderly and their families.
Appropriate planning is needed to meet the needs of elderly people. And also in the social service sector, there's the view that before launching the voucher scheme, government needs to confirm or agree on the qualifications and training benchmark for relevant staff. And they also should come up with a code of practice for the staff to strengthen the provision of services. That's very important. And fourthly, the government needs to set up a case management system. That is, the government should authorize and provide the manpower needed to coordinate and, try to ensure services are there for the service providers. I think case management should be under the scrutiny of the government, and it should be an item that charges fees. Thank you. Next one is the Center in charge of Baptist Oi Kwan Social Service, Leung Yiu-chung put elderly centers, Mr. Zhang Wai-nun. Thank you. I'm here to express our objection to the pilot scheme. There's a need to, indeed, when Carrie Lam was Secretary for Welfare in 2002, there was this actually an article, document written by Ms. Lam that asked that is whether we had elderly people who could only rely on CSSA to opt for, private residential home services that lacked quality. To people who do not quite understand the sector, they may think that what Ms. Carrie Lam said made sense, but the truth is her analysis was flawed. But unfortunately, the consultants today and the Elderly Commission and the Welfare and Labour Bureau, none of them had the courage to correct that. Let me go back to 2002 and see what was the situation then. Conservatively speaking, because although elderly people living in private homes with bought places, 70% of them were on CSSA, and so that led Lam to the conclusion that the poorest had no choices, and not much choices of services. But in 2000 household survey showed that the median income for elderly people was 2,600. I'm sure you're clear about the poverty figures today. There isn't much difference today, indeed, in the figures. Old people today still choose to actually very limited choices. They have very limited choices of residential care homes, and they're not willing to go to homes with bought places. And the waiting lists for subvented homes are very long. So I hope that officials and the consultants and elderly commission and so forth can, as soon as you can, improve community care services and to review the subvented homes with bought places. And you need to look at the ratio of staff to residents instead of just go the shortcut or the wrong path of implementing or forcing upon the center the voucher scheme, because this voucher scheme would not give any help to elderly people in need. Thank you. Next one is representative from the Caritas Elderly Association, Ms. Fong Heng. Good morning. I'd like to point out that the Elderly Commission and consultants arrangement of public visit activity in February amounted to only a sort of fake consultation. We do object to the pilot scheme. We do hope, however, that we don't know what the service provision will be like tomorrow, how much the government is willing to commit to the provision of services. But we hope that, to say that even in the last activity, there wasn't enough time for or information for the elderly people for them to make up their mind. But despite all the opposition, the administration says that it will have or go ahead with a pilot scheme on the voucher system. Indeed, there isn't enough time for stakeholders and elderly people to express their views, and neither had the administration explained to us their rationale. If you support it without actually adequately listening to what people think, then, that's inappropriate. And welfare officials, if the Bureau plans to force the scheme on us, then I think the administration would have twisted the facts. It will only undermine the success of the scheme. And the elderly people and groups supporting the service for elderly people will only express outright opposition against both the scheme and means test. And we urge that all the meetings on the service for elderly people should be made open. And elderly people's groups want the government to withdraw its plan and carry out full-scale consultation to absorb the views of elderly people and users. We urge more transparency and open meetings instead. Well, the administration says that it's committed to making changes, but it should not lose the trust of elderly people. With an aging society, the views and participation of elderly people are very important. To protect elderly people and to ensure they get long-term and professional long-term care. We are here to speak for them. We need to protect the long-term development of professional service for them. Thank you. The next one is Ms. Zhou Chengping Fong from the St. James Settlements Retirees Voluntary Group. Good morning. I want to point out today that the consultants' co-payment arrangement is misleading. I think its calculations are confusing and not properly done. The government is going to implement a pilot scheme on RCC, but the consultants only made reference to unit cost of the certain type of surveyed homes with bought places. The basis is not fair because those homes do not fit the expectations of those on the waiting list anyway. The consultants should have known that the people only need to wait for 4 to 5 months for admission into those category A or the better quality surveyed homes with bought places. And some older people, even now, wrongly think that the voucher scheme would be enough for them to live in surveyed homes that they like. The truth is that the government is planning to minimize its investment in the cost and subvention for residential care service. And those who need residential care, if they want to use the voucher to get high quality service, the government would not provide any subvention indeed in that regard. In other words, elderly people would have to pay for themselves if they want high quality service. Besides that, the administration claimed that it wants to concentrate public resources on people most in need. That is, the administration wants to implement the plan in September of asking people receiving the voucher to increase the cost that they have to pay for, from $1,757 to $8,000 odd. I think the consultants have not clearly explained the arrangement for co-payment, and neither has explained why they think that the old people will be able to afford the service available. The Elderly Commission, the consultants, and the Labor and Welfare Bureau actually are doing something that I think is good, but indeed would not have any positive results for the elderly people. Next one is the Executive Committee member, Mr. Ho Ping-chiu from the Hong Kong Association of Senior Citizens. Thank you. I'd like to point out today why we object to the voucher scheme. Based on the Audit Commission report, in 2013 to 14, the administration actually spent $907 million on civil service, of which $800 million are reserved, which is equivalent to the entire expenditure for CCS in the year before. And people doubted, the challenge. Why? The $800 million wouldn't it be better used for CCS instead? In the past 5 years, CCS, the places for CCS rose from 2006 in 2009 to 9,450 in 2014, a 35% increase. And the waiting list for CCS rose by 84%. That is from 2,300 odd to 4,280. Even though in 2014 the daycare service and home-based service on average had waiting time on average of 8.5 and 5.3 months respectively, and yet in some communities like New Territories, the daycare service on average had a very long waiting list, up to more than a year. So I hope that the government can use the $800 million instead to shorten the waiting time for daycare in the New Territories. That is to cut it down to 1 month, and that would reduce the the fact that old people have to move into residential homes at an early stage because of lack of daycare places. And home-based service, besides New Territories, the average waiting list was long as well, or waiting time was long as well, an average of 10 months. So I hope that the government can use the $800 million to shorten the time, spent waiting for home care service to 1 month instead, so that elderly people would not need to move into residential homes because of lack of support in the community. And thirdly, the government should increase accredited, staff, so that and staff that can help with assessing which type of elderly people who can qualify for residential care. We only got 2,400 qualified assessors, and that's adequately inadequate. By the end of 2014, the Integrated Assessment Office had a backlog of 7,200 cases that are awaiting assessment. So I hope that the administration can spend $800 million instead to shorten the waiting time and increase the number of assessors. Thank you. Next one is Feng Liu from the Monitoring Alliance on Elderly Policies. Yeah, thank you. I'm here for the purpose of objecting to the implementation of the pilot scheme at this stage, because old people who are poor, the scheme would not be unfair and unreasonable for these old people who are poor. Elderly people in need of residential care, and their families have tried all means to enter private homes. They hope that one day they can actually in the end, they hope in the end to move into self-rented homes finally. But have you thought about that? Well, you seem to suggest that the voucher scheme is offering people more choices, but the threshold and the mechanism involved indeed take away the hope of poor old people and their families.
They have to move to the A1 type RCHEs. In other words, homes that are not popular. But then you are telling elderly people and their family members that in fact they will be given more choices. This is not the case. The Elderly Commission, the consultancy team, and the Labor and Welfare Bureau should tell us whether they are really giving more choices to elderly persons. You can say that elderly persons have the choice. They can choose not to opt for the vouchers. But you have to consider their difficulty. Some of them live alone. Some of them do not have children. Some of them simply don't have people to take care of them. It's true that for those who switch from CSSA to vouchers, they get $11,000, but then they will lose their CSSA benefits. Some may decide not to opt for vouchers, and they will still get their CSSA payments, but they will have to continue to suffer in the private homes. And then people will keep persuading elderly persons to opt for vouchers because with the vouchers, then the quality of service they receive will be enhanced. So in fact, they don't really have genuine choices. And then is it that they will also lose their OALA? And then subsidized homes and contract homes will be available to those who have the means. Your proposal will be very unfair to the poor elderly. Thank you. Next, Mr. Peng Fai Hung, Hong Kong Christian Service. Yes, Chairman. Why is it that we don't like the idea of these vouchers? We want the government to use more resources to enhance residential services for the elderly, and we really do not know the details about this voucher scheme. I think service contracts should also be reviewed because more staff is needed to take care of elderly persons with deteriorating conditions. And of course, RCHEs have to be licensed, but then we have to make sure that there are good quality services provided to the elderly. At the moment, the SWD can only buy at most 50% of the places in a private home. I think this cap should be removed. If there is a great demand for homes or for places in this home, then SWD should buy more places from this home as an encouragement or an incentive. And for the enhanced spot play scheme for RCHEs and for nursing homes, the average or the monthly average cost and the average living area per person should be reviewed. There should be an increase in the supply of places. And then there should be more temporary places in both public sector and private sector homes. There should be a central database so that for those elderly persons in need of temporary residential service, they can get the service more easily. This will also alleviate the burden of the carers. And there should also be occasional care service for elderly persons who have to be hospitalized because of acute illnesses. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chunky. Thank you. I would like to very clearly state that I oppose the pilot scheme at this stage. It is said that the money should follow the people, but then we have the choice not to accept the arrangement. The Elderly Commission and the consultancy team carry out the feasibility study on the basis that there can be a trial, and then the scheme will be implemented. I think the Hong Kong U, the Bureau, and the Elderly Commission, in fact, already have preconceived ideas. So as an old man who is 80 years old, I oppose this stance. You are very well educated. You have a lot of powers in your hands. But does it mean that because of your status, you can turn a deaf ear to our views? Is it that we have to listen to you and you don't have to listen to us? So is it that you think that elderly persons are not well educated, they're not well informed, they keep repeating their arguments, and as a result there is no need to heed their views? I want to say that in fact we are reasonable and logical. There will be more and more elderly persons in society. Do you think that you don't need to consult widely on your proposal? I want to say that I will ask elderly persons in Hong Kong to vote on this voucher scheme on a one-man, one-vote basis. I'll ask them to choose between the voucher scheme and a scheme which really suits the interests of poor elderly people. Is it that we must choose this option where money follows the people? I think we have a choice to reject that. Mr. Chow Yin Ming, Association of Evangelical Free Churches of Hong Kong. Now, Mr. Zhang said that he didn't want to choose this money following the people approach. I want to say that in fact the government is asking elderly persons to choose an option which will mean that there will be a downgrading of the service they receive by 1 or 2 grades. Many social workers and elderly persons do not think that the pilot scheme should be launched at this stage. They feel that this voucher scheme can't take care of the best interests of elderly persons, especially those with dementia. We understand that the policy is to encourage elderly persons to age in place, and of course, residential services is the fallback. We do not want the number of elderly persons receiving residential services to keep on increasing. But then carers, family members do have a lot of difficulties taking care of elderly persons with dementia. And this pilot scheme may affect people's eligibility in the future to opt for special arrangements for elderly persons with dementia. Perhaps this present pilot scheme should be targeted at elderly persons of dementia, and so staffing arrangements, geographic locations of homes, internal layout and design of homes, these will have to be taken into account. The government has proposed a supplement for homes with dementia elderly persons. I think these resource arrangements should be regularized. Case management has to be improved. Quality of service has to be assured. We really want to see improvements to services for the elderly, including residential services and also outreach and care and community care. Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Yvonne Chak, Hong Kong Christian Service. Yes. Chairman, in February, the consultancy team told us the objectives and advantages of the pilot scheme at a briefing. It is said that more choices will be given to elderly persons. It is said that the quality of residential services will be resulted, and it is said that the queuing time can be shortened. But I don't think these objectives can be achieved. We are also told that in future, fees charged by private homes will no longer be pegged to CSSA payments, and as a result, those CSSA recipients now living in private homes will no longer exist. But I think for this problem, it should be resolved in the CSSA context. In other words, CSSA problems or problems associated with CSSA should not be resolved by a voucher scheme. Now, in fact, the government can require homes receiving CSSA recipients to improve the standard of service. There are at present a vetting scheme. There are at present 16 service standards, and so the government can require these private homes to comply with these standards. And with these measures, 90% of non-subsidized private homes can immediately see services improved. Now, CSSA is for those without adequate means. CSSA provides a basic allowance to those in need. But then a long-term care supplement is a supplement for those who are weak and frail. So the two are different in nature. In other countries, the two are calculated separately. For those with financial difficulties and who have long-term care needs at the same time, they need to have CSSA as well as long-term care supplement so that they can meet their expenses for long-term health care. So I think the present problems should be resolved in the CSSA context, not with a voucher system. And government is not providing adequate protection for elderly persons. For example, for those in need, they only get CSSA payment. And family members can't really pay for the shortfall in expenses. For some elderly persons, if they have been assessed by doctors as frail, then they get an extra $285 per month. But then that would only give a total of $7,000, and that's enough for meeting private home expenditure. And so we oppose the use of vouchers to seek to improve the quality of service for elderly persons in residential homes. Yes, Ms. Anita Wong, HKCSS Specialized Committee on Elderly Service. I want to say that this scheme is not suitable at this stage.
In 2009, Elderly Commission commissioned Hon LEUNG Yiu to carry out a study. And in 2012, January 11, the welfare panel in LegCo had a discussion paper that summarized the conclusions of that report. I'd like to highlight two conclusions. One is that the elderly people in Hong Kong's ratio of living in residential homes is higher than that of other countries, and the usage rate of CCS was very low. Therefore, there is room for improvement in CCS. And secondly, residential care service voucher scheme could result in a large demand for residential home places, and causing young people to move into residential homes when it's really not necessary for them to do so. So your purpose in implementing the policy is to devise the long-term goal for development of the service for the elderly and to enhance support for carers of elderly people. We definitely agree with the conclusions of that report. Therefore, in the following years, we propose that there should be review and optimization of the infrastructure for residential care for elderly people, and there should be long-term planning for residential care service. We are very pleased to see that the administration has set up working groups and commissioned consultants to carry out relevant studies, and the working groups are still doing their work. And in 2013, there was this pilot scheme for CCS launched. Even though there are different views, but we are still prepared to support it. Hopefully, after the phase 1, we can review, optimize, and improve on the phase 2 scheme. I hope that the CCS can be further developed to provide better support for carers, so that family members can help the elderly people stay in the community without having to moving to residential homes at too early an age. And also for elderly people who are living alone or whose family members have difficulties caring for them can then use those places in residential homes. We hope that we can correct the long problem and situation that is unfavorable for elderly people. We very much appreciate the welfare plan to actually allocate more land for the building of private homes. But I want to quote paragraph 168 of the care for elderly people in the report. We believe that if there is no planning and for development of CCS and measures to reduce the demand for residential homes, I think there will still be a long waiting list for places in those residential homes and denying elderly people the kind of service they need. Thank you. Next one is Anita Wong. Ms. Wong Ming-fong. I'm a person with disability, and I'm very worried that one day, the administration will force the voucher scheme on the rehabilitation sector. I want to express my views today. According to the consultant study in Hong Kong, in the 18 districts, residential homes that can be upgraded to A-class quality can ask for RSP, but family members and people in the sector have said that even residential homes that are of Class A category, they still vary in the quality. So most homes may not even participate in the scheme to improve their services, and there are actually elderly people who live in private homes, and I found that 1 week later, they asked these elderly person who are bedridden, asked social worker to move her out of this home, because in that home, the elderly people did not get enough care at the home because she needed people to help her go to the toilet, and she wasn't given enough help. And now the government is providing shouldering the monthly cost of 14,000 for a private home, and yet the for non-profit organization and self-financing nursing homes, they may not have enough money, or they find that the money offered by the voucher scheme may not be enough for them to sustain the business. So therefore, there's a need, I think, to raise the value of the voucher scheme. And RSP should be for contract homes and also non-profit making homes, instead of private homes. And manpower sources and other operating costs will affect the quality and sustainability of homes for the elderly. Private homes do face a higher risk of closing than the insolvent ones. Therefore, we would not recommend issuing or extending the vouchers to private homes. There's a lack of fair assessment system of the homes, so there's a need to improve the complaints mechanism first. The complaints mechanism should be actually the responsibility of the social welfare department. So I do not support, and I would not recommend actually having the voucher scheme covering private homes. And we would suggest that please don't force the implementation of voucher schemes in September. Thank you. Next one is Ms. Chen Shenyi from the Reclaiming Social Work Movement. On the voucher scheme, our organization objects to it because we think that the government is trying to indeed leave a long unresolved problem to the market. The voucher has only the effect of making every kind of service becoming a commodity. But can it really solve the problem? The government should assume that private homes would actually should indeed put the elderly people's interests first instead of their costs and instead of the profits. But based on experience as a frontline worker, often private homes would try to suppress the operating costs, including the salary of the staff, reducing their manpower in order to maximize their profits. Therefore, private residential homes are notorious for their inferior quality. Elderly residents there cannot get adequate care, and that's why even if under the voucher scheme, some of the private homes may be raised to A-class standard, like homes with board places. But even that's the case, can we ensure that the quality of service can be increased or improved? Even elderly people with different types of impairment, or those with medium, moderate cognitive impairment, or elderly people who need people to help them wash their bodies. The number of hours and intensity of care they need vary. Just by expanding the size of a residential home or increasing the number of staff slightly, would that really address the emotional and physical needs that these elderly people need? You said there could be a monitoring mechanism. That is, people can complain about bad services, but I can say that this monitoring mechanism should have been there all along. And this mechanism indeed has not had any effect on private homes. So even with your proposal, we wonder whether your proposal, even with the monitoring mechanism, can ensure future quality of service. And the proposal of means test, I think that many of the old people will fall under the category where the test might be needed. But when elderly people who need a lot of help, who's very dependent on the carers, and if their families cannot afford the extra pay, just the voucher scheme that's worth little more than $10,000, that can ensure that they will get the quality service they need. And if they don't qualify for the voucher, then they will have to be back on the long waiting list for the service they need. We need to strive for the welfare of everyone, but the voucher scheme, to a certain extent, only try to leave these services to the market. It seems like it's giving people choices, but indeed it's forcing elderly people to be led by the market, and the choice is constrained. So the government should have a long-term planning for care services for the elderly instead of just making minor changes. It's like the chief executive said that, well, North Korea has universal suffrage, but are you saying that this voucher scheme is equivalent to true welfare? When somebody needs care as an elderly person, you will find that there's no vision for elderly care service indeed. So would you, for example, in the future, maybe feel shameful about your present plan? Thank you. Next one is Ms. Zhang Yin-Lam, Center in charge of Hong Kong Christian Service Bliss District Elderly Community Center. Good morning. As someone mentioned earlier on, I do not object to the principle of money following the user. I do hope that the government policy can give more true choices to the elderly people. But the current scheme, however, is contradictory and overlooks some key issues. Let me give you one figure and 2 questions and 3 proposals today. First, the consultants estimate that those on the waiting list, about 10% of them are willing to join the pilot scheme. But in our center, when we are following up on the 600 cases, less than 1% of the elderly people are willing to go to homes with board places. It's not that they don't want long-term care, but it's that after over so many years, those private homes are like inferior homes to them. Elderly people would rather bear the cost of the higher cost of other homes, or live at home despite the difficulties in order to wait for quality services. So there is flaw or the problem with the lack of supply of qualified subvented homes. Those in the sector and other people have 2 particular observations about the scheme which make me feel sad indeed. First, for the same elderly person with the same need, the CCS actually would cost $6,000 and the voucher scheme would cost $11,000. So why can't we increase the support for CCS? We're not talking about choosing a pair of shoes or a dress. We're talking about care when you are when you're very old. So, but the inadequate supply of nursing home places have forced elderly people to make choices that they don't want to make. You're saying that you want to see money following the user, but you have to respect elderly people's choices. The real choice, indeed, actually, or the scheme itself runs contrary to the spirit behind. How much longer do the elderly people wait for the home they want? If you want to provide for the benefit of the welfare elderly people, we have 3 proposals. Firstly, before rushing to implement the scheme, we should address the core issue first. That is to review the board place scheme for homes and also improve the quality of private residential homes, and also have to come up with a long-term plan for elderly care. And also we need to be open to diverse views and incorporate people's proposals. And for the better future of the elderly people, please respect their rights and dignity. Thank you. Next one is Civic Party's District Developer, Mr. Joshua Lee Chun-hei. Yes, Chairman, I'm Joshua Lee from Civic Party. The inadequate provision of places for elderly people is an old issue already. The people on the waiting list for places has kept getting longer and longer, and yet many of these elderly people are not willing to go to private homes with board places. And the voucher scheme, even though it adopts a money following the user principle, allowing users to choose the right service provider, and yet their scope of choice is pretty much confined to private homes. And there's no guarantee of the service provided at private homes. And also these private operators may close their business anytime. So all this unknown is still there, and yet you are asking elderly people to make choices among these private providers. So you are, in other words, just outsourcing the services to the private sector. So we think that the administration and the homes run by social welfare organizations, which are more popular with elderly people, the government should indeed ignore this sector.
In the short term, more homes should be constructed, and there should be training for the staff. So we must not allow the privatization of RCHEs and the services. And second, for those who opt for the voucher scheme, they should still be eligible for subsidized homes, and there should also be a cooling off period, and so that elderly persons can change their mind afterwards if they want to. And you should also try to help elderly persons adapt to the new living environment. And for the costs, you can see that the costs there should be an increase in the subsidy. It is important that the subsidy for each case be increased, or else organizations will be deterred from operating RCHEs. In fact, only the elderly persons concerned and their family members can decide whether the voucher scheme is suitable for them. So there should be more briefings for elderly persons, their family members, and social workers, so that they can make informed choices. Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Mek Wing Shan. I'm a social worker and serving elderly persons. Although I'm not very experienced, I want to say that I oppose the voucher scheme at this stage. As a frontline worker or social worker, of course, I welcome new initiatives to help elderly persons. But then, why is it that this pilot scheme is to be launched so hastily? Is it that you want to shirk the responsibility onto elderly persons so that they are forced to choose among services that are not suitable for them? How many elderly persons are making use of the enhanced board place scheme? I think you know the answer. Many elderly persons are concerned about, or they have little confidence in the quality of service provided by private homes. Now, government must not just spend money launching a pilot scheme without a long-term goal. Government should not waste money. There should be proper monitoring of the quality of service provided by private homes. Thank you. Next, Ms. Lee Kit Lin. Yes, Chairman. As a frontline social worker, I have 2 questions to ask. There are elderly persons waiting for nursing home places. And in fact, the level of service they need is higher than the level of service provided by care and attention homes. Why is it that this pilot scheme doesn't cover those waiting for nursing homes? And then second, at the moment, the subsidy is about 11,000, and I'm worried that the fees charged by private homes will go up. At the moment, for A1 homes, the fees are about $8,000 to $9,000, and if the subsidy under this voucher scheme is $11,000, then private homes will also increase their fees. So we all want to provide elderly persons with this types of services that they want. The amount or the value of the voucher is about $11,000. Perhaps we can allow the elderly person or the carers to decide whether the money should be used for residential care services or for purchasing community care services. Thank you. Ms. Poon Yim Peng, I'm a frontline social worker. I don't think the pilot scheme should be implemented at this stage. Now, when elderly persons are allocated board places, very often they reject the offer, and their family members also do not like the offer. In fact, in 2014, only 5% of the elderly persons said they were willing to take up board places. Why is it that elderly people have so little confidence in board places? Now, it is said that there can be a co-payment arrangement for A1 homes, but we really doubt the effectiveness of this scheme. I think you should enhance the quality of service of the enhanced bought place scheme first before you launch this present pilot scheme. Thank you. Thank you. All the deputations have spoken. Today, no one expressed any support for the voucher scheme, and I think the administration and the consultancy team can give some answers. But of course, a few members would like to also ask questions. So, Permanent Secretary, 5 minutes. I'll just make a few points and then I'll ask the consultancy team to supplement. I thank the deputations for coming. They are NGOs, social workers, and elderly persons, and also carers of elderly persons. We have been working with NGOs, and we understand your concerns. First of all, we understand that the wishes of the elderly persons are our primary concern, and we understand that we should try as far as possible to enable elderly persons to age in place. But then there are frail elderly persons who really need residential services, and there is a long queue for subsidized homes. And so that's why we are launching or proposing this voucher scheme. I'm grateful for your views, but I want to clarify one point, and that is the voucher scheme represents an additional choice. In fact, our other planning work, long-term planning work, are still continuing. While we strengthen community care support, we are constructing new RCHEs. We are also encouraging non-profit making organizations to provide new homes. And it's helpful that NGOs are making use of their own sites to provide additional places. So I want to say that we've also done these things. So we hope that the extra 7,000 odd places can come on stream as soon as possible. And we've done a lot of work concerning enhancing community care. The assistant director can supplement. So we are trying to give elderly persons more choices. Now, elderly persons can remain on the waiting list. They can still continue to receive CSSA. It is not that they have to opt for vouchers, but we're just providing elderly persons with an additional choice. Is it that elderly persons can really have a choice? The answer is yes. Now, we have to pay for the bought places anyway. But then we hope to give more choices to the elderly persons. They take up the place, and we pay for the place. Some say that we are launching the scheme hastily. This is not the case. We are just proposing a pilot scheme because we understand that we need to have an experiment, and this pilot scheme will be phased over a 3-year period. We will look at the outcome and the effectiveness of the pilot scheme in deciding on the way forward. So please don't think that we are acting hastily and that we are going to use the voucher scheme to replace other services. We will look at whether the design can meet our future needs. And then I'll invite the consultancy team to supplement. Yes, Chairman, thank you. In fact, I do agree with many deputations on certain points, but then I think the analysis that I have is different. But due to time constraint, I can't really give all the details, but I would like to provide some information for your consideration. First, giving elderly persons on the waiting list an additional choice. It's true that in the survey, only about 11% support or are willing to opt for board places. And also means testing. There are about 3,000 people now on the list, and so I think in the near future only 6,000 elderly persons will be given this option. So I want to say that in fact there will be this extra option for elderly persons. Second, we talked to homes, A1 and A2 homes, and they are optimistic. We believe that about 45% can be upgraded from A2 to A1, and then for other licensed private homes, about 33% of them say that they can have their services upgraded so that they can meet A1 standards. But then we are on the conservative side, and we think the percentage should be about 11.4%. So their services will improve over a period of time. And then concerning whether the queuing time can be shortened, the impact will not be too big because there will only be 3,000 places, and so the queue can't be really greatly shortened. And then case management. The team has proposed that there should be a service fee. But after talking to NGOs, we think perhaps case management can be provided by SWD or by an independent non-profit making organization. And then for the 8 grades, for co-payment, or the 8 tiers for co-payment: 0, no need to pay at all; 1, paying less than now; although they can't get CSSA, they can get OALA, and so they will be able to get about $2,000 a month as pocket money. So I think you need not be too worried about this. And I think deputations have been talking about private homes only. A1 private home standards represent only the basic standards. For self-financing homes, contract homes, and non-subsidized places and subsidized homes, they all fall under the this category for vouchers. A continuum of care is a very important part of our elderly policy. If an elderly person has opted for a voucher, then our policy is still to provide a continuum of care. In other words, if the conditions of these elderly persons deteriorate, there will be extra resources for the service units to provide more services to the elderly.
Okay, now I think I will open the floor, and those in the queue are Fernando Zher, Leung Hong, Tang Ka-Biu, Peng Shiping, Leung Yiu-chung. Each of you will have 4 minutes. Fernando Zher. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to thank the deputations and individuals for coming. Altogether, 30 of them, including last time where we had more than a dozen present. I think all of you have shown that you care about the pilot scheme. But as the Chairman said, Well, last time we also heard more voices opposing the scheme, and today everyone seemed to be against the pilot scheme. I think the people who came are important stakeholders. They come from the welfare sector. People from it seems like everyone from the social welfare sectors is opposed to the scheme. So what are users? I think just looking at the situation, there's no need for me to say anything. We should put the scheme to a halt and to restart dialogue with other stakeholders. So therefore, I'm going to move a motion. Our panel could actually express a clear view to the administration. Chairman, I'm sure you'll deal with the motion. But on what has been said on the voucher scheme, I think you made a point that choice is the most important. If we were to give people choices, I would ask all of you, the policy makers, in designing the pilot scheme or the voucher scheme, have you considered that one day, when you are in the situation of the elderly people, would you go for the A1 class home? Elderly people needing long-term care, or those with disabilities, the urgent priority for them is to increase CCS. And yet, the provision of CCS is getting disproportionate amount of support. Private homes are not of good quality, so there's a need of services for CCS. How are we going to use the $800 million? Even you say, well, let's just focus on the residential homes. The most pressing issue is to improve the quality of residential homes, not to upgrade it to A1, but to reach at least the standard of subvented homes. Even the level of subvented residential homes can be further enhanced so that elderly people in the last years of their life can live with dignity. So why would we be throwing money at raising the poorer service providers to make them, reach just middle level? To me, I would rather die than die in category A home. So why are we putting money into doing that? And it just puzzles me. Well, we heard a lot of factors today, and I'm not going to repeat what has been said. So maybe that's. Shall we just handle the motion now? Well, we have a quorum. We just got a quorum. So if you think that now is the time to move the motion, yes, please. Okay, let's read out the motion. Some of you may not have it, but it reads as follows. Since residential care service voucher scheme is long-term care model, yet many of the people in the social welfare sector and elderly people object to the scheme. Initially, data showed that only 1/10 of the elderly people on the waiting list would consider using the scheme, and the means test. Our panel urges the government to shelve this pilot scheme and to restart dialogue with elderly people, family members, and all the social welfare sector and the stakeholders to devise and to plan for the future. And we also urge that there should be resources diverted to increasing CCS, to improve home-based and daycare center, so as to help those people live with dignity. Okay, so members, any discussions or views on this motion? If not, let's put it to a vote then. Those in favor of this motion, please raise your hands. Thank you. Well, all the members present supported this motion. There's no objection. So all were in favor. So I will declare that this motion was adopted. Leung Yiu-chung next. Let me read 2 paragraphs to you. One says that, the peoples are the true heroes, and yet we tend to be always naive and lovable. You will not get adequate knowledge if you can't understand that. The next line says, all of our work orders, no matter what their ranks are the dedicated servants of the people. Whatever we do is for the welfare of the people. Whatever we lack, what do we lack and what can we not do away with? Well, this is from the Mao's quotations from Mao Zedong. Well, officials sit opposite us, well, including the users, the family members, care providers. Well, we don't have people running the homes here. Well, people who benefit from enhancing their homes to Category A are not here. Well, of course, they will upgrade service because that means more business for them. But my view is simple. It is an issue of opportunity cost. Now we're talking about $800 million. As an academic, well, you're given a task by the government, given to you by the government. You could, of course, say that you can solve the issue for the government, but the fairest way is, or approach is that you have to come up with an objective first. No moms or dads will say, well, I'm broke. I need to bet $500 on horse racing, and I need to spend $1,000 on drinks. So just sort out what to do, after deducting those money from the household budget. Just make a meal for the whole family. But that doesn't work. The issue is, how can you address such a big issue using so little money? Logical is like the biblical figure, Pilate. Well, you may say, well, you object to spending $800 million. But that's not really an objection or reasonable. You, of course, do not delay in doing other tasks. But Category A or Class A, upgrading home to Class A standard, that nonetheless cannot, the quality issue cannot be resolved just by a pilot scheme. If it's still, if it's something that is, a strange product, then you can't just try to, change it in any way. If it's a hybrid, it's a hybrid. Either you don't have a review, just do away with any review. You just give out money. That's it. If you ask people to come to give suggestions and exaggerate things, once we agree, then that means you are asking us just to pocket whatever you're offering. It's like the CE saying that, well, the elections in North Korea are also universal suffrage. You need to go back, and you can't just, play with things and just come here and, be scolded by us all the time. Next one is Tenka Bill. Of course, I personally, as we discussed earlier on, the case in Chek Sa Ling, I think the operators and other people would think that, well, not all private homes are bad. So to me, it's very simple. If you can provide, same amount for a CCS, then I would accept the proposal. Using the same money following the user principle. So how can you ensure that people living in the homes can really make true choices? They're capable of making true choices, that they can choose to leave if they don't like the home. I'm just worried that those who are living in private homes and on the waiting list for Savannah homes cannot make a choice. because of their cognitive impairment, or they may not have adequate support from family members. If they have adequate family support, they would not need to live in residential home while being on the waiting list. So these people are not real consumers. They are in a home environment where they could be controlled. So I have reservation. If you want to enhance the overall quality of private homes, then why don't you at the same time suggest amending the legislation governing private homes so that could lead to enhancing the overall quality? We're not saying that we should actually get all the old people out of private homes. Well, there are indeed many vacant places at residential homes. So why can't we amend the legislation at the same time so that people would see that the government is committed to enhancing the overall quality? I think only after we've done all those things can we achieve a consensus and have mutual trust. I'd like to stress that, the resources for CCS are just too tiny. The $5,000 voucher for CCS can only be used for 3 days, but not 5 or 7 days. So to this motion, I don't object to money following the user, but with all the outstanding issues, I think you better listen to more views first. Okay, we still got time left. How about the administration? You want to respond? Okay, just then Fernando Zheng. Yeah, I'd like to respond to... Well, are you not responding to mine? Can you respond to Duncan Appeal's points first? This is his time. Okay. Mr. Tang. Well, we don't object to his views. Money following the user, we all agree with that. If you want to give elderly people more choices, that's something good. And some homes, whether there's a vendor or not, they are doing a good job. But some other homes have room for improvement in the services. So how can we help the elderly people make the choice? In designing the pilot scheme on the voucher, we would make reference to the views of the consultants. CCS, well, inadequate resources for it. In my presentation today, I said that this year there has been an increase, raising the total resources to $2.3 billion. We can see how much the need there is before deciding how much more resources to put into it. We have been increasing the resources, but the number of old people and the types of need of them change. And just then, some workers said that we are doing the ESPP, and once we've done the overall planning, we have a better idea of what we need to do. Okay, next one. Thank you, the deputations, for telling us your views. Last time, at our meetings, we heard the submissions of some private home operators. They said that they welcome the scheme and said that they had to import labor, and of course we have reservations about that. But today, I heard particularly from the social welfare sector, and that the views are very important. They all feel that, of course, well, the idea may be good, but if you introduce the scheme in a rush, then that could lead to negative results. Particularly people in the social welfare sector talk about the inadequate supply of assessors and staff at homes. No matter what, I agree with what Fernando Zheng said, that we need to have a further dialogues with the stakeholders. I do feel that your proposal is flawed. Just then, Dr. Law said that, well, you had your analysis.
I agree that there should be further discussion with the social welfare sector. According to your timetable, the final recommendations will be ready in May. I think that the government should fully take into account the views expressed by deputations today. And then why is it 3 years? Why is it that the pilot scheme will be phased over a 3-year period? It may not be a good thing to prolong the pilot scheme. I think we want to have the outcome and the assessment as soon as possible. And will there be any impact on the length of the queue and the queuing time? Yes, perhaps Dr. Law can give an answer first, Chairman. Chairman, the $800 million is not for 1 year, it's for 3 years. We should be talking about $430 million in the third year. So please do not think that will be spending over $800 million in 1 year. And then the impact on the queuing time, as I have said, because it's only going to be a pilot scheme, so the queue may the length of the queue may only be reduced by a maximum of 3,000. That was the hearing on Monday, and there is this hearing today, and we in fact have carried out some consultation exercises involving stakeholders. We'll continue to communicate with the social welfare sector. In fact, there are many channels for communication with the sector. As I told the HKCSS on one occasion, there will be continuous liaison with the sector. So it is not that we're only going to work on the voucher scheme and nothing else. In 2015-16, we will spend $2.3 billion on community care in 2015-2016. Corresponding figure in 2012 was only $1.69 billion. So in other words, there will be a 38% increase. So please do not think that we're only going to spend money on a voucher scheme and we are going to do nothing else to help the elderly. Mr. Leung Yiu-chung. Yes, thank you. I thank the deputations for coming today. Chairman, as you have pointed out, there is unanimous opposition to the scheme. And then the deputations all think that the government is acting too hastily. There hasn't been adequate consultation and communication with the social welfare sector. And then the deputations all feel that the present provision of home care services is not enough, and the money should be spent on enhancing home care services instead of on the voucher system. But then, of course, the government has told us that over $2 billion will be spent on home care services this year, or community care services this year. So it is not that the government is only going to work on a voucher scheme and not other schemes. But then I really have to say that those who are receiving home care service feel that the present level of service is far from enough. There is a great demand for the service, and also people are complaining about the quality of the service. For example, meal delivery services. Many elderly persons are unable to benefit from this service, or some elderly persons only get meal delivery service on a few days in a week, or they can't get the service on holidays. Yes, I understand that some elderly persons do need residential care service. There are many on the queue. I'm not saying that this is not the case, but you propose to provide 3,000 places over a 3-year period under this pilot scheme. So what is going to happen after 3 years? There will be a review after 3 years, and so it seems that there will there will be a firm plan only 4 to 5 years later. But then what about the inadequacies concerning our home care service? And then finally, deputations have said that the scheme should be shelved. What is your response? Mr. Chairman, concerning home care service, in fact, we've provided some written information in response to Mr. Leung's letter. As Mr. Leung is concerned about home care service, I think the Assistant Director can supplement. Yes, Chairman. Service providers and HKCSS have been monitoring the situation with regard to integrated home care services. For ordinary cases under this program, no means testing is required. Concerning meal delivery and then escort service to clinics, to hospitals. Now you can see that the demand for such services varies. We will have to get a clear picture of the demand in different types of services. In 0506, we increased resources for these categories. And then what about the idea of shelving the scheme? Mr. Leung Yiu-chung, can you please let the Permanent Secretary respond? All right. Thank you. I want to say that we do have channels to continue the dialogue with NGOs and stakeholders. Our timetable is that the consultancy team will submit the report to the working group headed by Mr. Lam, and then the working group will forward the report to the government. And the SWD will also need some time to prepare for the launching of the pilot scheme. So from now till the launching of the scheme, we can continue the dialogue with the welfare sector. In fact, we've received views during various public engagement exercises. All right, it's my turn. I think these consultation exercises have triggered a heated debate and a new round of discussion on all the long-standing problems associated with the provision of services for the elderly. And please don't think that these deep-rooted and long-standing problems can be resolved by a voucher scheme. So even if you launch this pilot scheme, or you shelve it, or you press ahead with full steam, you cannot evade the problems that have been brought up. I want to say that for subsidized homes, the subsidy is a few $1,000s more than the subsidy for private homes. But then, although people are in general more satisfied with subsidized homes, sometimes there are problematic cases in subsidized homes. For example, concerning bathing the elderly persons and so on and so forth. Now, private homes seek to make profits. And they have their own problems. They have to pay very high rentals, and so they can only save costs by reducing the number of staff members. For private homes that can meet A1 standards, their services are regarded as acceptable. So private homes have to pay high rentals and they have to make profits. So the quality of service really will not be very satisfactory. But then for elderly persons, for those who are in A2, they want to go to A1. For those in A1, they want to go to subsidized homes. This is the reality that we are facing. Not many deputations agree that the $800 million should be used appropriately. Some do agree that the money should follow the people. So they think that elderly persons can decide whether the vouchers should be used for residential services or home care or community services. Now, Dr. Lam, nobody has asked you any questions. So I want to ask you this question. As aging in place is the basic policy, do you think we should spend $800 million on the voucher scheme? You know, do you think more money should be spent on strengthening home care service? Sorry, I have used some of your time. In fact, Chairman, I share your concerns, Chairman. And in fact, I also share a lot of the concerns of users and stakeholders. I think you all understand that the Elderly Commission emphasizes the policy of aging in place for elderly persons. So we are also eager to provide more home care services and community care services. In fact, we've seen a lot of improvements to community care services. The Elderly Commission has over the years given a lot of suggestions to the government. And we hope that continuous improvements can be made. I know that the social welfare sector wants to see more improvements to community care services. The Elderly Commission and also my working group will continue to seek further improvements to such services. There is a working group on ESPP, and this study will take 2 years and is headed by the chairman of the commission. We also want to get the full picture, but I think we have to understand that at the moment there are many elderly persons waiting for residential homes, and many elderly persons really have to go to private homes using their CSSA payment or through taking part in the board place scheme. This is the reality. So how can we try to change the situation?
Some concern that people who live in private homes on CSSA I'm particularly concerned about this category of residents, and I hope that we can help them first. So I personally very much hope that the administration and the working group can come up with a good solution, not to solve the entire problem, because it's just a pilot scheme, but at least it can give us a ray of hope, showing us the way ahead, so that elderly people, while stuck in a waiting list, can have another choice, and private homes can have the incentive to improve their services. I personally believe that, given the present-day reality, this is something worth pursuing. Thank you, Dr. Lam. I think, we're a bit overrun, and we need to adjourn our meeting soon. So let me thank all the deputations and individuals, who expressed your views, and I believe that your views today were heard by the administration, and we hope that we will continue to monitor the administration and see where the administration really address the concerns, and will continue to communicate with you. I hope that the secretary or her team actually know very well what has been said today and can respond to them. It's no use just listening, but I mean it's important to respond to what's been said as well. I hope that you will respect our motion passed today as well. So meeting adjourned now. Thank you.